As you've heard, I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, and moved to South Africa in 2001 when my mother, who's actually in the audience, was appointed Kenya's ambassador to South Africa. I arrived in South Africa at a time when I was meant to join university. And although I had an interest in media and communications, I was told that as a foreigner, I was unlikely to get a job in that industry in South Africa. So I was told to do something else, something like accounting, something that I felt was really outside of my character and my passion. But I followed the advice. I was a young man, listened to my seniors. I pursued accounting, and in spite of not really having much of a passion for it, I gave it my best shot. I graduated amongst some of the top students at VISTS within the top 20 percentile. But again, being a foreigner, I was not able to get into the big companies. I ended up joining a predominantly white, medium-sized audit and accounting firm. I progressed pretty quickly to the position of a partner at the firm. I used to go to meet audit clients. I'd be with a fresh-faced graduate, white graduate from the university, and I'd be the partner. But it took a while for people to, in the meeting, to develop an understanding of who was a more knowledgeable party. In 2010, myself and my then fiance, now wife, and a few people started a publication called The Expatriate. It was a publication that was started at a time when xenophobia and xenophobic violence and tendencies were really heightened in South Africa. They're still there, but it was quite out there in the news. And our intention was to showcase professionals and entrepreneurs and basically migrants in South Africa who are making a positive contribution. In 2013, that's last year, we rebranded the publication to call it The African Professional. The intention being that we realized that we were really boxing ourselves into a particular grouping. And also the fact that as a publication that is sold at CNA stores, a lot of the people who are reading it were not necessarily expatriates, were actually South Africans who had an interest in these stories. The publication is read widely across the continent, and the people who are reading it were not necessarily expatriates. That's The Expatriate that we started in 2010, and the rebranding was to that, The African Professional, in 2013. Also in 2013, it's worth mentioning that at the end of the year, I quit my job as an audit partner to focus on business interests inclusive of working on this publication, which fulfilled really a lifelong dream of being in the media and being an entrepreneur. Now, in the course of the past 3 years, this publication has been what you can call my MBA. I've been very fortunate to interview a number of people, and some of the stories I think I've been very blessed and I've learned from them. And I want to share stories of 3 of those people with you. The first person I want to speak about is Colleen Low Mona. Now, Colleen was born in Zimbabwe. She was born to South African parents who were in exile. Her parents had basically decided that they were not willing to live in a racial South Africa, in spite of the fact that they were white and obviously in a superior position. Growing up in Zimbabwe was not easy for Colleen. They were working at her parents were working at a missionary school. And when I interviewed her, she told me that bodies used to be ferried in and out of the school. She used to take the train. Occasionally, some carriages would be bombed. It was not easy. But she graduated top of her high school and progressed to Princeton University, an Ivy League institution in the US, on a scholarship. When Colleen arrived in the US, the African Society, led by this Ghanaian chairman, immediately started a protest. They did not understand how a scholarship that was meant for an African had gone to a white person. And it so happened that Colleen and this Ghanaian chairman of the African Society worked in the same kitchen together, and they got speaking. And then he really got to understand her story, that she was actually born in Zimbabwe. Her upbringing is African. She knows a lot about the continent. Shortly after that meeting, Colleen got a letter inviting her to join the African Society. But not only that, soon after, she got an invitation from this Ghanaian chairman for a date. And today, Colleen and her husband, this Ghanaian man, have been married for 30 years and have 2 children. Colleen's story doesn't end there. She came to South Africa in the 90s. She was the first CEO of South Africa's Commission for Gender Equality, a Chapter 9 institution under the Constitution. Doing such work, it did not work out within the commission. She did not agree with the way things were going. They parted ways, and she took the commission to court for unfair dismissal and won the case. With the money that she won from the case, she started GenderLinks. Now, GenderLinks is one of Africa's most effective gender non-profit organizations, dealing with all kinds of issues that affect either gender, gender-related bias, issues such as female genital mutilation, rape, and the like. They are based in South Africa but have offices across the continent, employing a whole host of people, not only here but in the rest of the continent. We'll move west. The other story I want to tell you is of Wale Akinlabi. Wale is Nigerian. After high school, did not have enough money to go to university, so it was determined that he would be a houseboy. That was the only job he could get, cleaning the house, feeding dogs, feeding the master's dogs. He managed to progress out of that, and he got a job at a camera and video shop, where he told me his life could be summarized into a cardboard box. Now, the reason was because that cardboard box, he'd put his clothes during the day, him and the other employees, and put it away and work in the shop. At night, he'd bring down the box, break it down, make it into a bed, and cover himself with the clothes that were in there. Not earning much, I think, say 100, 200 rand a month. His opportunity came when he met a South African who came to Nigeria to shoot a documentary. And after that, he transitioned to South Africa. And through learning filmmaking, he told me saving money, building on a dream, he managed to make a whole host of the productions that were on the Africa Magic channel, including Good Morning Africa, were produced by his own company. Now, a couple of years back, he managed to raise multi-million dollars. He raised a few $1 million to start what is Africa's first radio TV station. That's a radio station that broadcasts on the internet, on the radio, and on the TV at the same time. They have offices, world-class offices in Randburg. He employs more than 50 people, most of them South African. That's Wale Akinlabi. Third person is Stella Ogema. Stella is Ugandan, but she grew up in Kenya, raised by a single mother. When her mom fell sick, she was struggling to get a job. She picked up the newspaper, looked at the currencies, and saw that the Botswana pula was one of the strongest in Africa. Took a bus to Botswana. Based on just that information, she only had about, I think, $500 at the time. By the time she got there, she didn't have much money left. Went knocking door to door trying to get a job. Got a job, it wasn't paying her much. She decided her next stop would be South Africa. Stella took a bus to the border. You've all heard these stories. Stayed at the border, met other people, tried to find out how to get into this country. Together, they crawled under the South African border fence. She was chased by the police and the dogs, grabbed a truck, got transported to Johannesburg, and lived in a refugee hall. It wasn't easy in the refugee hall. She managed to get a shack in one of South Africa's townships. No running water, no electricity, no working toilet. From there, she became a gardener, did gardening, became a receptionist in a training company, learned how the training company was making money, and decided she's going to start her own. This is Stella at her own training company. She has more than 10 employees today, and she has achieved all that within a span of 5 years. So why am I sharing these stories? I titled my talk today, Thinking Outside the Box of Your Upbringing. We all have had the expression thinking outside the box, and when you hear thinking outside the box, you think of, think creatively, and that's basically the connotation. But I'm talking about thinking about a different box. The day you're born, you're a clean canvas, and everyone is a clean canvas to you. You don't have any impressions about the people that you meet. You don't have any impressions. You don't have any emotions, negative emotions. Actually, I'll go to a quote from Nelson Mandela. He says, No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People are taught to hate. People are taught to classify others. In the course of your upbringing, it's conditioned on you. You will repeatedly be told what tribe you belong to, what nationality you are, what skin color you are, what class you are, what culture you are, or like me, what career you can pursue. It will be repeatedly be told to you, and it will become a conditioning, and you'll be put inside a box. What we're talking about today is thinking outside of that box. Another quote I have is, this is what experts say: within seconds of meeting you, a person will make his or her determination about your socioeconomic status, your level of education, and your desirability. They will make their conclusion about you. When I stepped on stage today, barring the introduction, if there was no introduction, just by standing here, even if I did not open my mouth, you'd have had some sort of determination or conclusion about me. The question is whether or not that conclusion of the people you shall meet in the course of your life is what you're going to live by. Are you going to let people make you feel inferior or feel negative about it because that's the conclusion they make, or are you going to make it yourself? Eleanor Roosevelt said this: no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. You have to consent to someone else's conclusion about you. The only reason I was asked to come and speak today, the only reason the three people I've spoken about are worth mentioning about is because they've done their bit to think outside the box of their upbringing, to think outside of that lane that society wants to place upon them. And this is what I say: ordinary people do extraordinary things only when they venture outside the group, the lane, or the box that society limits them to. There's many examples in history. I mean, I could talk about this all day. Nelson Mandela, a good example. Now, Mandela, he was a hero of the black people in this country and the previously disadvantaged. That was his box. I mean, we all knew that he was fighting. He went to jail for black people, for freedom and all that. That was his box. He only transitioned from a legend to an icon and to a hero when he thought outside the box of his upbringing. That in 1994, he did not think of himself, yes, I'm a champion of black people, but I'm a champion for all humanity. Black or white in South Africa, African, that is the only reason that he transitioned from being a hero, a freedom fighter, to an icon, and you saw all the scenes that surrounded his passing. Barack Obama, a very good example. He is today the president of a predominantly white country. He's the leader of the free world. You wouldn't have thought that would happen. I mean, that could only have happened if he did not think of himself as the son of a Kenyan immigrant to the US. He did not think of himself, oh, I am black, because that's the black box that he'd be operating in. I'm recently inspired by a lady by the name of Lupita Nyong'o. You could have heard of her. Now, this girl is from my hometown, Nairobi, Kenya. She wanted to pursue performing arts. Her father recently admitted that he had encouraged her to pursue sciences. But she said, no, I'm going to do performing arts, and she was really insistent about it. Now that in a country where, or in a continent where performing arts is not very rewarding. But she took it on, studied it, worked on it, and what happened? Last year, she got cast in 12 Years a Slave, a Hollywood production, a high-paying Hollywood production. It's now world famous. And 3 weeks ago, I think 3-4 weeks ago, on the 3rd of March, Lupita Nyong'o won an Academy Award. Now, she really inspired me in her speech because she made this very powerful quote: no matter where you're from, your dreams are valid. Ladies and gentlemen, no matter where you're from, no matter what box you have been put into in the course of your upbringing, the dreams that exist beyond that box are valid. And we all fear. I mean, there's always the fear that because that box comes with a comfort, it confines you towards that comfort, and to venture outside of that box does have its fear. But I love this quote by Marianne Williamson, which Nelson Mandela used to love, and which is attributed to him quite a bit, where she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We are powerful beyond the box of our upbringing. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be? Today is Human Rights Day, and I will transition from box to balloon, because if you think of a box, it confines. But if you think of balloons, they're full of air, they soar. You know, their only nature is to go up. I read a story recently about an exercise that was conducted where 50 people were each given a balloon, and they were all told, write your name on the balloon. The balloons were taken from them and they were put into a room. The 50 people were told, you're given 5 minutes to go into that room, find the balloon that has your name on it. Now, they all went in there. Within 5 minutes, there was a scramble. Balloons were bursting. People were trampling each other. After 5 minutes, no one was able to find the balloon that had their name on it. The same exercise was repeated. This time, everyone was given a balloon, write your name on it, put into a room. But something was changed. They were all told, when you go in there, the first balloon you get, look at the name and look for the person whose balloon it belongs to. Walk up to them and give it to them. Ladies and gentlemen, it did not take 5 minutes for everyone to have their balloon. So your happiness, your purpose, your destiny, it lies in helping others to find theirs. And I'll conclude, I'll land this plane by saying this. Boxes confine, balloons soar. My challenge to you today is to go beyond the box of your upbringing and find your balloon. Write your name on it. Help others to find theirs. Only then can we individually and collectively find our purpose and destiny in the 5 minutes that this life is going to give us and soar. Thank you.